Yesterday, I reacted to a video of Roger O'Gorman in Hungary for the LGTB parade, talking about how NGOs are not funded by the government. When of course, everybody and their dog knows that NGOs are 100% funded, if not 90% funded by government. As you can see here, Ben Scallon asks and says that NGOs receive 90% of their government funding. And Pascal Donoghue has admitted that if they're only funded if they're consistent with the program for government. Basically, all in all, they're funded by the government. Of course, the left woke government is funded, and these NGOs are funding this sort of nonsense of these liberals, and it's just a whole shit show parade. Everybody knows it, guys. The NGOs are in bed with the government. They promote these left woke ideologies, and it was great to see that, of course, the USAID has gotten desperate now, and they have completely cracked, talking about how, oh my God, all these cuts to the USAID is causing 14 million deaths by 2030. When it's not, guys. It's not at all. It's going to fund bullshit research and just nonsense, pushing these woke liberal ideologies, okay? And here we have Ben Scallon, my man, confronting him to ask him what the hell was the story with that bullshit.
Deputy, you made a very strong defense of the NGO sector in a recent video. You were talking about how they are, in your words, a non-governmental organization, which indicates that there's a delineation between them and the government and so on.
These NGOs are going to devour us all. So what's all this fuss about NGOs we see in the comment sections? An NGO is a non-governmental organisation, and the hint is in the name, non-governmental. NGOs are sometimes the strongest critics of government, and I know that, having been a minister myself.
What?
So why are we seeing these comments? Why are we seeing these attacks on NGOs in Ireland?
But as you know yourself, Minister Pascal Donoghue has said previously that the government would not fund any kind of NGO that wasn't in line with the programme for government. Is taxpayer funding only given out in line with government policy?
To therefore ask you a question, do we use taxpayers' money for purposes that are in line with the programme for government? The answer to that question is yes. And we wouldn't be using the country's money for purposes that we felt were not consistent.
So yeah, if you're not consistent with the government ideology, the agenda that the government are pushing, we're not going to fund your NGOs. Would you look at that? Conflict of interest means no funding. Huh. Interesting. Like, we all didn't know it. Of course we all knew it. Ridiculous.
The programme for government.
I believe even your party colleague Joe O'Brien made similar remarks when he was minister.
An objective process undertaken to fund different NGOs under different schemes that have different priorities under government policy as well. So it needs to be in line with government policy of the day.
So there is clearly a link between many NGOs and government policy. Some of these NGOs, such as the National Women's Council, receive more than 90% of their funding from the state. So is it really reasonable to act as if these organizations are totally independent and like they have nothing at all to do with the state's agenda on various social issues?
Well, that Ben Scallon absolutely roasted him there. Like, that was like a knockout punch from Mike Tyson. That was just a roasting.
Agenda on various social issues?
Well, having seen the level of criticisms I've received from NGOs across the sector as a minister over the last 4.5 years, I can say very clearly they are independent and they have no qualms about attacking government and attacking them very robustly if the particular issues that NGO is highlighting aren't, in their view, being adhered to, aren't being followed by the government.
Could you give a specific example of a criticism that an NGO leveled at you while you were a minister?
Could I? Criticism by the Children's Rights Alliance in terms of the scorecard that they put out every year in terms of government's failure there. Criticisms by the National Women's Council of Ireland in terms of some of the legislation around domestic violence leave when we were going for 5 days rather than 10 days. Look up any of their websites, Ben, and you'll find a lot of criticism there.
But I mean, on those issues,
that dude's an asshole. What the hell is he talking about? So basically, he didn't get any criticism. He got from the Children's Council for nonsense and for some bullshit Women's Council, which the Women's Council tried to get rid of woman out of the out of the Constitution. They try to make it where man and woman is like fluid, that there's no such thing as men and women anymore. Like, dude, Good morning, Ireland. Time to wake up. This is the people that we have in charge. This is like the blind leading the blind, the clueless leading the clueless. What the hell is going on here?
Issues, though, they do agree with you. You would be largely agreed on those issues that the state should do more in those areas. Maybe the state isn't living up to its commitment in one area or another, but the actual policy is not a point of contention between you and those NGOs in those cases. I presume you do agree with the National Women's Council and its agenda broadly, or any of the other social NGOs that typically come up in these areas.
Well, I think the issue is, are they somehow controlled by government, or do they follow their own agenda? And it's very clear to me, again, as a minister who was regularly criticised by these organisations, that they do follow their own agenda.
Ooh, yeah. I would say they're doing both. Are they controlled by government, or do they follow the agenda? Well, they do both. They clearly do both. If somebody is funding you, even if they're giving you a little bit of money, you have to sell out a little bit and follow the agenda, or else you're not going to get any more money. The bottom line is, if you're getting funding that's not independent, like me, I just get people giving me money and views from the video, it's independent. When RTE gets 725 million, whatever, just pick a number, like crazy amount, from the government, RTE have a vested interest, of course, in giving the best perspective about the government where they shouldn't be. The fourth branch of government, which is the media, should be holding the other three branches to account. Okay, they are not doing that because they're funded by them. If RTE was an independent journalist website or whatever, little old county gains, I would completely wash them. I get more views on my long form videos than they do. I get more attention than they do. They're just ignoring the attention that me and all these other creators are blowing up now. We're getting huge. Like, we're massive, guys. We're bigger than these mainstream media platforms. Far bigger. Because we have no bias. I'm not bought out. I'm not bought out by countries. I'm not sold out to the people. I've done none of that. I'm for the people. Okay? Literally, like, I'm just a regular guy, man. You know what I mean? These corporations and these national corporations and companies don't care about the average person. And the average person is now looking at these massive corporations and saying, well, they're not for me. They don't give me an honest voice. Everything that they say is created. I report the news. They create the news. Plain and simple.
They somehow controlled by government, or do they follow their own agenda? And it's very clear to me, again, as a minister who was regularly criticised by these organisations, that they do follow their own agenda, that they can be very harsh in terms of their criticism. And indeed, certain NGOs that would receive some funding from government would have come out against the two referendums last year. For example, FLAC, the Free Legal Advice Centre, Irish Centre for Civil Liberties, came out against that referendum campaign. So I think, when a government proposes a constitutional change and organisations come out against that, I think that's a very clear sense of them being independent in terms of how they operate.
They're not independent. That was the greatest non-answer I've ever heard. BS. All right? Ara, would you stop, would you? You box. There we have Grip Media. Shout out to Grip Media, man. They're actually keeping it going good. I haven't been reacting to a lot of their stuff in the last few weeks, but they're doing well. Go like, comment, subscribe to their website. I'm always shouting them out. Do they show some love to me? They do. I like Ben Scallon. He's a great guy. But yeah, man, it's great to see people actually holding these officials to account, because every other news source that's there interviewing with Grip Media, Irish Independent, the Irish Times, RTE, they don't give proper journalism anymore. Okay, only Ben Scallon and Grip Media are actually asking these guys hard questions. Okay, all the other people are just sucking them, kissing their ass. It's like, who can kiss the boss's ass better will get the promotion. Complete nonsense, complete bullshit, guys. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to help support me push back against the mainstream media, hit the join link underneath the video. Okay, check out my membership only videos and content. I love you all. Stay free, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Peace.